the moment when suddenly I knew that I could be a writer. I remember reading a Roger Zelazny book of short stories called Unicorn Variations that has a weird sort of framing structure. It's essentially Roger Zelazny talking to himself about what he sees in his mind as the story unfolds. And now I see a red curtain, and now I understand that the woman is blind. I had never seen the process of storytelling before that. I had only seen finished stories. Suddenly that one story opened my eyes to how you imagine a story and then you write it down. I found this profound moment of enlightenment. I'm Andrea Phillips, and I am a transmedia creator. I recently wrote a book called A Creator's Guide to Transmedia Storytelling. Transmedia is the art of telling one story across multiple media. So you might have a book and a comic book and a movie that all tie into the same thing. There's an element of intertextuality where each medium makes the experience better and deeper and more exciting. When you use multiple media, sometimes you're just expanding a story, but sometimes you can actually introduce interactive elements that make the story better, richer, more engaging, and you can start to paint with a different palette of emotions than you would if you were just using flat media. Some years ago, I worked on a game called Perplexity. It was essentially a 2-year treasure hunt that built a place called Perplexity that existed only on the internet. We had a character that was destined to die in this game, and it was a necessary plot element to bring everything to its natural conclusion. But we realized late in the game that we had never made her human. We'd never given the audience a reason to care about her. We created a website for her, and she started talking about her family, her children, and she started working with the audience to investigate a mystery of some thefts that were happening at the academy where she worked. She turned up 3 days later, brutally murdered. The audience was sad, which we had expected, and we were pretty pleased with ourselves to have evoked a strong emotional response. But what we hadn't expected was that they would be guilty. They felt personally responsible for her death. They sent condolence emails to all of the other characters in the story, and they hand-folded 333 paper cranes in real life and hand-delivered them to the offices of Mind Candy. Just incredible to know that you could provoke that kind of feeling from someone. Another thing that I really, really love about transmedia is the ability to layer context in ways that you can't do in flat media quite as well. When you can look at an element and then decide later to turn it into an extra layer of context, you can do magnificent things. If you had a character drop a coffee cup, let's say, in a scene in a film, that would probably put that character in kind of a rotten mood. She's broken a coffee cup, and it would explain her being grouchy through the next several scenes. If in another media you explained that that coffee cup had been a gift from a dying parent, all of a sudden breaking that coffee cup becomes something far, far more compelling, and it paints the entire rest of that primary narrative in a completely different light. Even if the audience is never directly communicating, simply receiving information in that way kind of makes you care about it in a different light than if you're simply reading about someone in a newspaper or watching them in a film. Because the theory of a relationship is there. Simply the possibility of knowing that you can reach out and touch the story world makes it feel more real. It makes it feel like something that you care about tremendously more than things that are just given to you passively. I am a very active consumer of media. I find I'm a lot pickier now about what I like and what I don't like. I'm not just watching the story and feeling along with the audience. I'm kind of seeing it fall apart in my hands. It's like a toy. It's like a clockwork toy. And there are certain pieces that fit together. At a certain point, once you know how the trick is done, it has to be executed very well for you to respect it. We used to think that transmedia was a new thing, and it kind of isn't. The things that we're doing are fundamentally the same. Even from, I think, the 1300s, There was a tradition in novel writing where you weren't writing a story, you were finding a collection of letters in an old market or in your grandmother's attic. This separation of responsibility so that you weren't the storyteller, you were the conduit for a story. And I think that we're trying to do a little bit of that same thing in transmedia, trying to gain authenticity as a thing that people should care about in this same way. Transmedia is taking that seeking and piecing behavior we already have and putting it to work. When you deliver a story in that way, people kind of care about it more.